Porter did an interview with Brian Custer, but before I get into that, hit that thumbs up, sub to the channel, hit that bell. With that being said, let's get into it. Excuse the cuts, I can't read it all in iMovie, but here we go. With me is 100% the competitive spirit that I have and the willingness to fight someone who a lot of people feel he's feared, and a lot of people don't want to fight him. A lot like me taking on Errol Spence Jr. I know what I can do, and you give me an opportunity, and I'm going to do it. I'm not going to let anything stop me. Really, the only thing preventing me from fighting Terence Crawford is the fact that he, now listen right here, and I both haven't said yes. If he's willing to say yes, the fight will happen. So right there, that dispels this notion that only Terence Crawford did not want to fight Shawn Porter. In this, he talked about Crawford's a friend of his as well. I'm going to stop the video here, bring it right back after this cut. So basically, he said both of them have not accepted it, and that's why the fight has not happened. Porter admitted right there that he also has not said yes to the Bud fight. But what he said in this was that he believes Bud is going to leave Top Rank and sign with the PBC, and then they can fight. This is my thing, and this is how I feel. Here the fuck we go again. Why does it matter if Bud stays with Top Rank or not? Why does Bud need to go to the PBC to fight these PBC fighters? Do you know why it is? Because I'm sorry, as much as I like Shawn Porter and as good of a fighter as he is, he's going to get knocked the fuck out. Bud is going to demolish him. Then all the Bud haters, all the people who have never been on the Bud fan wagon are going to fucking jump ship and say he's the greatest thing, that he needs to fight Spence, blah, 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 blah. But they don't have that energy now. They need to see something that I already know what's going to happen. He is going to outclass Shawn Porter. Shawn Porter, who goes in there and smothers all his punches, is going to be very ineffective against a guy like Bud, who knows how to take half-back steps, create separation against somebody who smothers you to get off hard shots. I'm telling y'all, Spence dropped him, but better than Spence dropping Porter, Adrian Broner dropped him. If Adrian Broner can drop him, I promise y'all, Bud is going to knock him out. I don't care how good y'all say his chin is. When he gets in there with Bud, it's going to get tested and it's going to be found wanting. You can argue with me all day. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, Al Heyman knows Bud Crawford is the PBC destroyer. He will beat Shawn Porter, so he needs to get him over there. So when he destroys Shawn Porter, he can make that Spence fight. Now, with me saying he's the PBC destroyer, will he beat Errol Spence Jr.? I don't know. I think it makes for a very good fight, but I think it is very possible and very plausible that Bud beats him. I really believe he can beat him, but that's not 100% guarantee that he will beat him. The reason why I say that is, stylistically, both fighters complement each other. What do you mean by that? Well, this is what I mean. Errol Spence Jr. throws a lot of punches. He comes forward towards you. Bud Crawford is best when he can counterpunch and catch you. So by Errol Spence letting his hands go as much as he does, he's there to be hit by the counterpunches. Opportunities will open that Bud Crawford can take advantage of. That is when he is best. However, on the flip side of that, Errol Spence Jr. is best when he's got a guy who comes forward and doesn't let off a lot of shots, who's not going to move away from him. See, Errol Spence has issues with cutting off the ring with guys who start to move away from him. That's why he could not knock out Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia was outclassed, he was outgunned, and he went into flight mode, and that's the only reason why Errol Spence did not knock him out. Had Mikey stayed in the middle of that ring, he would have got sparked, period. I don't care how much of a fan you are of Mikey. He did everything he could do to stay disengaged from Errol Spence Jr., just to make it all the rounds. That's all he did. He did enough to survive, and that was it. Had he sat in there, I have no doubts in my mind that Spence would have knocked him out. However, that showed you that Errol Spence is not the best at cutting off rings. With that being said, Bud plays right into his strength. He'll go straight towards him. He won't let a lot of shots off, and he'll try to counter. That's what Spence likes to fight. A guy who comes straight forward and doesn't let go of shots very often, who's going to be right there in front of him. So how I see it is both guys benefit from the other guy. Now, I know this is about Shawn Porter, and I know this is about Terence Crawford, but really, in my mind, it's about Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. because those are the two best welterweights. You can say Manny Pacquiao's in there, but I really think that most people believe that whomever Manny chooses to fight, whether it be Errol or Bud, he more than likely will lose. I'm going to do a video about Manny Pacquiao tomorrow, but I'm just trying to get this out real fast. The whole point of this video is, why the fuck does Bud need to go to PBC to fight these guys? If he's not that good, if he's not that feared, even though Porter said he was feared, then Al Heyman would let him get defeated. In my mind, what I believe is that Al Heyman is trying to keep his guys away from Bud because he knows Bud is a huge threat to all of them. And unless he can sign him and make money off of him, he doesn't want Bud to take all the money away from him because that's what Bud will do. Really, the PBC's stronghold is the welterweight division. Now you can say super middleweight, junior middle, not super middleweight. You could say super welterweight, junior middleweight, same class. And middleweight, they've got their hands in, but they don't control any division, in my opinion, like they control the welterweight division. They have the Charlos going up in both those divisions that I just mentioned, but that's not really a stranglehold, just having two fighters, one in each division. At welterweight, the PBC has a stranglehold on all the guys that are considered the top talent. Thus, Al is not trying to fall behind by having Bud come in there and defeat them all, which I believe he will. And with Shawn Porter, I like Shawn Porter. I think he's a beast. I think he's a dog. I think he gets in there and gives it his all. But I don't see him surviving against Bud. I don't see that swarm style working. And if he stays at range, it's going to be even worse. If he tries to fight Bud like he fought Ugas, he's really going to get destroyed. He's really going to get hurt because he's going to be at the end of all of Bud's punches. Shawn Porter, when he goes in with his little short frame, I don't think he can stop Bud from creating separation. I think Bud is very good at creating that separation, and he's going to put him out. He's going to hurt him, and he's going to finish him because one thing about Bud is he's a very good finisher. So if the fight happens between Shawn Porter and Bud Crawford, I have Bud knocking him out. Now, y'all can tell me I'm crazy because I've been on a lot of lives that say I am crazy for saying that. But when he knocks him out, I will be on all those lives, like I've been on other lives, with my head held up high and wanting to hear them say what they've got to say because they all seem to change their fucking tune when it happens. They all try to say, oh, you don't know boxing, but every fucking time I'm right, they ain't got shit to say when I show up. That's all I'm saying. Now, off of that, again, my main focus on this video is, why does Bud need to go to the PBC? No. If y'all think Bud is a worthy challenger, if y'all think Bud's a good fighter, then fight him regardless who he's with. Now, I will say this before I get off of here. Errol Spence Jr. versus Bud Crawford. Errol Spence Jr. deserves the bigger part of the pot. He deserves more money than Crawford. If Crawford is trying to have a 50-50 fight, I don't believe Spence should fight him. If Crawford's trying to have a 60-40 like he said, I think he's pricing himself out of the fight. The bottom line is this. Errol Spence makes more money off of pay-per-views than Bud Crawford. Although they both together will make more money than I believe Spence has ever made in a fight, Spence is the one that deserves the bigger share. The biggest portion of the pot should go to Spence, at least in the first fight. If there's a rematch clause, then just work it out the other way. Do 60-40 for Spence the first fight, 60-40 for Bud the second fight if Bud wins. My thing is this. If Bud is so confident that he can beat him, like I think he can beat him, then take the 60-40 split with a rematch clause saying you get the 60-40 in the second fight. Then guess what? It's a 50-50 fight without being a 50-50 fight. It's very simple. As far as Shawn Porter and Bud Crawford goes, I don't really know who the A side to that is because Crawford has a belt, but Shawn Porter has been in more high-class fights. So In welterweight, you could argue that Shawn Porter has the better resume, but he's lost to top opposition. However, you could also argue that, well, Bud Crawford's history speaks for itself, and he's more established. 3 divisional champion, undisputed in his last division. So, I mean, it's all how you look at it. I don't know who would get the bigger share, but the bottom line is this. If the fight's going to happen, it should not matter who Bud is signed with. Get the fight to happen. As far as what Porter was saying about Errol, if it is real, what they were saying, and if it was not a publicity stunt, then I do feel like if my promoter was talking about me like Errol was talking about Bud, I do believe that he should sign with somebody else, and PBC would probably be his best bet. Because if Bud does decide to move up, you've already got a champion from the PBC right there. So it just makes it easier for him to not have to deal with this your side of the street, my side of the street bullshit, and they could just get fights done. But if he's wanting to stay with Errol, he should not have to sign to the PBC to get fucking fights. Period. That's ridiculous. That's an excuse. That's a cop-out. If these guys are saying that they're not going to fight him because he's not on the PBC, then that's dumb. And it's a duck, in my opinion. It's a duck. Even though I just said that I believe Errol Spence Jr. should have the biggest share of the pot, it's still a duck. If you're not going to fight him because he's not signed with your promotional company, it's a duck. Because either your promoter knows that you're going to lose and he doesn't want to lose that money, or 2, you know you're going to lose, so you're using it as an excuse because you know he's not going to sign with your promotional company. Either way I see it, that's a duck. If Terence Crawford tries to get a 60-40 split with him getting the 60-40 between Spence in the first fight, that's a duck, in my opinion, by Terence Crawford. It's a duck because you're not worth that. As far as Shawn Porter goes, if Shawn Porter stays with, I'm not going to fight him unless he comes to the PBC, that's a duck. It's a duck. So I hope that cleared it up. If y'all made it to the end, that's how I see all of this. And I kind of spiraled out of control to get to all of this when it was really about Bud and Porter. But I can't talk Bud and Porter without bringing up Spence. So let me know what y'all think in the comment section. Thank y'all for watching.